You know, there are some moments in history that just seem impossible. Moments where a tiny group of people stands against a tidal wave, and the entire future hangs by a single thread. Well, the Battle of Badr was one of those moments. It was a clash that, against all odds, would literally reshape the world. Today, we're going to break down how the impossible was made possible.
All right, let's just jump right into it. I want you to picture this. You are part of this small, new community. You've managed to pull together just over 300 fighters. And on the horizon, marching right for you, is a well-trained, well-armed force of 1,000 soldiers. This isn't just another battle. This is everything. It's a fight for your very survival. So, the question is, how on earth do you win?
Before we even get to the answers, we have to really understand just how dire the situation was. I mean, this wasn't just about being outnumbered. The very ground they were standing on was an enemy. And inside their own hearts, a whole different kind of battle was raging. Let's just let that number sink in. 3-1. For every single Muslim soldier, there were 3 soldiers from the Quraysh, the powerful tribe that ran Mecca. In any normal military playbook, that kind of disadvantage, it's a guaranteed loss. And if the numbers weren't bad enough, the terrain itself was working against them. The sources describe the spot they camped on as this deep, soft sand, almost like quicksand. Imagine every single step being a huge effort, just draining your energy before the fight even starts. The land itself was a massive handicap. So this wasn't just a physical fight. There was a huge psychological war going on, too. A sense of weakness, as it's described, started creeping through the ranks. Whispers of doubt were getting louder. I mean, think about it. You're outnumbered, you're on terrible ground. Of course your morale is starting to crack. But then, right there, on the brink of total defeat, something shifted. Before a single sword was even drawn, they received what are described as 2 incredible blessings from the sky. One would literally change the battlefield, and the other would bring peace to their souls.
So what happened? It rained. And what's so amazing is how this one thing, this completely unexpected rain, was the perfect solution to so many problems. That quicksand-like ground, it became firm, easy to stand on. The rain also purified them, and maybe most importantly, it felt like it washed away all those whispers of doubt and strengthened their hearts for the battle to come.
And this really shows you that connection between the physical and the spiritual, right? The very same rain that made their feet firm also made their resolve firm. What was a huge tactical problem was, in a moment, turned into a real advantage.
The second blessing was just as powerful. On the night before this terrifying battle, a night that should have been sleepless and filled with anxiety, a deep, peaceful sleep just came over the entire army. Terror was replaced by calm. So they would wake up and face the enemy not with exhaustion and dread, but with renewed strength.
Okay, so their spirits have been lifted. Now it was time for strategy. And what Prophet Muhammad did next was introduce a military formation that was so radical, so completely new to the Arabs of that time, that the strategy itself became a weapon. Now, to get how big a deal this was, you have to know how battles were usually fought back then. The style was called kar wa far, basically attack and retreat. It was all about individual warriors charging in, clashing for personal glory, and then pulling back. It was messy, it was chaotic, and it wasn't really built for a solid defense. So instead of that chaos, the Prophet introduced disciplined rows, a wall of believers. The men in the front had spears, creating a solid barrier to stop any charge. Behind them, you had archers, laying down covering fire. The whole army would move forward as one single unit. And get this, for the first time, they held soldiers in reserve, ready to jump in at the most critical moment. You have to imagine the psychological shock for the Quraysh. They were expecting a chaotic brawl, individual duels. What they saw instead was this solid, organized, moving wall of men. Seeing that level of discipline from an enemy they thought would be panicked and easy to beat, well, it struck fear into their hearts before the real fighting even kicked off. But look, a strategy is only as good as the people carrying it out. And 2 little stories from right before the battle tell you everything you need to know about the character and the motivation of this small army. So as the Prophet is walking down the line, making sure it's perfectly straight, he sees one man, Sawad, sticking out a little bit. So he takes the wooden shaft of an arrow and gently pokes him in the stomach, saying, "Straighten up, O Sawad." Now, Sawad's response here is it's unbelievable. He doesn't just shuffle back into line. He speaks up. He says, "O messenger of Allah, you've hurt me. And since Allah sent you with truth and justice, I want justice for myself."
Just pause and think about that. You're outnumbered 3-1. The battle is moments away from starting, and one of your soldiers is asking for personal payback from you, the commander? How do you possibly respond to that without losing all your authority? Well, the prophet's response was instant. He just lifted his own shirt, exposed his stomach, and said, "Take your retribution." I mean, what a stunning moment. This is Islamic justice in action. It proved right then and there that no one is above the law, not even the leader. But here's the beautiful twist. Sawa didn't strike back. He just leaned in and hugged the prophet, kissing his stomach. When he was asked why, he said he knew death was likely, and he wanted the last thing his skin touched in this world to be the skin of the messenger of Allah. It's this incredible moment of love, but it's a love that could only exist because it was built on a rock-solid foundation of justice.
So, with justice established, the prophet turned to motivation. He reminded his men what the real prize was. He gave them this powerful call, lifting their eyes from the dusty battlefield in front of them to an eternal reward.
And one of the companions, a man named Umair, was eating a few dates when he heard this. He was just amazed. He asked, "Paradise as wide as the heavens and the earth?" When the prophet said yes, Umair looked down at the handful of dates he was holding and said, "Wow, if I live long enough to finish eating these, that's a long life indeed." He threw the dates down, charged straight into the enemy, and fought until he was martyred.
So, let's recap. You have divine intervention that changed the very ground beneath their feet. You have a brilliant, revolutionary military strategy. And you have men of incredible character and motivation. There was only one thing left to do: put the outcome entirely in God's hands.
And so the prophet raised his hands in this final, intense prayer. And his words just laid bare the true stakes of this battle. This wasn't just about winning or losing a fight. For him, this was about the survival of the message of Islam itself. It was a plea of total, absolute dependence on God. In the end, as we know, the victory was won. And this verse from the Quran just perfectly captures the essence of Badr. It talks about an action the prophet took, throwing a handful of dust, but says the real power behind that action came from Allah. It's the ultimate lesson of the battle, this perfect fusion of putting in the absolute best human effort you can while having complete and utter trust in the divine. And it leaves you wondering, where does our part end and where does God's part begin?